Here.
Geraldine.
Here.
Martell.
Here.
Joanne is absent. Christine, I'm here. Andrew.
I'm here.
And Courtney.
Here.
And I need a motion to approve or any corrections to the April minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And moving on to old business. Dog and cat licensing, we are currently at, for the year 2025, dog licensing, we're up to 455. And for cats, we are now at 85. And have any summonses gone out?
They were issued back in late February, early March.
Okay. And have we gotten any, court dates?
It's a payable offense.
Oh, it's
they don't
payable?
Yeah, they don't have to show.
Have
paperwork.
anybody, do we know if anybody's,
I know people have gone to court, yes.
okay, has anybody, relicensed their animals based on those summonses that have been sent out?
I do not know that answer, but I can get that.
Okay.
They wouldn't be able to license, they wouldn't be able to pay the summons without showing a license. So either it's outstanding with the court or it's been rectified.
So when they go to pay, when they go to court to pay, that is essentially them paying, getting their license.
No, they have to come to the municipal building, get the license, and bring that license to court to pay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's a $121 fine, so it's quite steep, yeah. So the court makes them prove in advance of paying
Okay.
that they license, or else it's sort of pointless, we would just have to reissue, because they haven't abated the violation, so.
Okay.
Compared to last year, what do you think, like, what's the rate at on license compared to license? Do you know?
It's hard for me to tell, because I started in September,
Okay.
so, yeah, I just went through my first licensing cycle, so, out of the non-compliant licensees, we got that number down tremendously to only having to issue probably, I think, like 12 summonses. And the initial list was about 40, so the problem is we have a lot of times is that people don't notify us that they've moved or that their pet has passed.
Yes.
So, you know, we do our best to make phone calls and leave messages, and then the animal control officer actually goes door to door to follow up with people. Cause it's sort of worse on the back end if we issue and then we have to dismiss and all that kind of stuff. So we try to be intentional about who we're actually issuing summonses to when we do that.
Gotcha.
Any, property maintenance, unfit property issues?
Generally speaking, we've got a number of garbage complaints and, 'tis the season for tall grass and tall weeds, so those have been coming into the department pretty steadily.
Yeah, it's usually we get this time of year. Ordinance 25-06, amending chapter 261, Health and Sanitation.
I'll jump in. So before, we move ahead with this, I'd actually like the board to take a vote to table this for discussion about the ordinance.
You know, this is, cause this is saying health and sanitation, is this the food vending licensing?
This is the mobile food.
Just so we know
Yeah.
what we're all talking about.
Yes.
Yes. I need a motion to table.
I make a motion to
Discussion.
table, ordinance 25-06.
I need a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we had a pretty good discussion last month about the fees and different licensing aspects as it relates to mobile food. I'm actually going through this and redoing the ordinance in Randolph as well, and so I I would just like the board to consider actually getting rid of the temporary licensure and moving to an annual licensure. So trucks would annually license, and that would give them the ability to attend any event that's happening in the borough. And so we talked a little bit last time about the cost of an annual permit being a little bit prohibitive for trucks. And so I would recommend lowering that, to either $50 or $75, based on whatever the board decides. But I think that will make it a little bit less cost prohibitive because there's not as much opportunity in the borough yet to come to these temporary events because we just recently got this council ordinance passed. But it also gives us, on the health department side, the ability to see the trucks multiple times, including doing sort of like a pre-operational inspection with them at the health department where they bring the truck and we can flag any issues ahead of them attending an event versus just getting to an event and seeing that there's an issue and potentially having to send them home.
Courtney, can I jump in right there?
Sure.
So what you're saying is if we lower the cost, that'll incentivize continued
Participation.
participation,
With
which
the-
kind of gives you guys more touches on that,
Correct.
whatever you truck, whatever they're using.
Right.
Okay.
I have a question though, so does the licensing fee, cover the cost of the labor associated with monitoring these types of
Great
trucks?
question.
So, cause then like it should cover, hopefully, cover the labor cost or the cost of the inspection.
The inspector, all that.
Sure, so I think the way that we do this with them bringing initially the truck to us helps to cut down on that labor cost.
Okay.
Because they bring it to us during operational hours, and then we're able to see, we don't wanna get out there in the field and see that their hand washing sink isn't open. And
Sure.
temporarily licensing them allows that piece to happen. Whereas them bringing the truck to us inspecting pre-operationally, and then being able to go out in the field, and if they're good, we do one inspection while they're operating throughout the year. If they're not so good, then that gives us the opportunity to get out more often and inspect them.
So it gives you a baseline in the beginning,
Correct.
and
Yes.
then if you see that there's a lot of issues, then you know you have to really stay up on
Yes,
the
and
inspections.
then we monitor our discretion based on that, yes.
Okay, so you wouldn't have to inspect them at every single, they had the temporary at every single one, they would have to sign up for a lot of paperwork, they wouldn't be able to
Right,
cut down on that too, right?
definitely paperwork, yes.
So if they come to you and you guys see something that maybe is a little on the sketchier side of things, or is just not what you guys are looking for, would they then not get the license?
Essentially, we wouldn't permit them to operate at,
So then, if.
they have to pass their
Maybe
inspection.
I missed something, but if they come and they pass inspection, but you still see, they pass, but you still see something questionable, that's someone when they're out in the field, you would just drop in
We can, yes,
unannounced?
yes. Yes. So if they didn't pass their inspection, they wouldn't get a license
Yeah.
to operate. But if there was something minor that we were like, I don't know if I've ever seen a perfect food inspection.
Like, hey, you
So,
passed,
right,
but you should probably.
there are
think about
some
it.
issues, they wouldn't prohibit you from passing and getting your license, but when we come back, we wanna see these rectified. And then, we may not go to their first event, but we may go to their second, kind of
So-
thing.
I have questions too. It's the same, like, so they come and there's a pre-inspection, so that does cut down on the labor. And there's, I don't know, let's see if the drying areas has wet nesting or something for the silverware and the other. We're gonna tell them not to do it that way, but we're gonna go check. What is the protocol for all these, for the inspections? Like what's we do an initial, and then we do one throughout the year, one random one, or we we do one, and if there's 1 to 10 recommendations, we'll do their first, their first time out, and then how do we know their first time out?
So every time they're at an event, they have to file with us that they're
Okay.
gonna be there,
Okay,
so
cool.
that's how we know. So every event has an event organizer form attached to it, so, I think Touch a Truck is this weekend,
Yeah.
so we know from the event organizer exactly who's gonna be there. And and then the vendors, they're giving us temporary permits now, so they have to tell us what they're selling. But if they were doing an annual, we'd have the whole scope right at once what they were selling. To answer your first question, it's really up to the discretion of the inspectors. I've seen trucks come through that they're like, oh, they really need to clean this truck before they operate anywhere in town, and so they make sure they're at their first inspection. I've also seen them, it's really up to the discretion of the inspector. We always ask with the application of their previous inspection report and their previous placard, so before we even get onto a truck, we know what their issues were in the last place they've been.
If someone passes with flying colors, do you ever
Yes,
see them again?
yes.
So I guess, one could say that within the course of the licensing for a year, there's gonna be a minimum of 2 touches on a
Correct.
truck, right? So the initial one and the second inspection. So I think for us to set a licensing fee, we have to understand the amount of labor attached to that, with probably an average salary rate,
Minimum
like.
2.
Yeah, so like, I'm making up numbers, cause I don't know. Somebody makes up, the inspector makes $100 an hour, and the first inspection is 10 minutes, and the second inspection is 20 minutes in the field going, then $50 would be an appropriate fee to charge, cause it would cover the cost of the inspector, right?
I would err on the side of
Probably a
the
little more.
75,
Yeah,
just to
right,
cushion.
exactly, cause like averages.
What's it at right now?
150.
Yeah.
Oh,
Which I
okay.
think we talked about last time is
Right.
being cost prohibitive to the trucks, especially we say annual, and I just mean that's good for the licensing year,
Yeah.
January to December, but people may not license a truck until this time,
Yeah.
right?
It's
So,
warm, yeah.
and we don't prorate that cost, it's just a flat cost, so that averages into it too.
I would even say then
Well,
80
there
or
would be
85.
no, and
Well, what about
roughly how many events there are throughout the town?
Yeah.
There's about
In a year?
five right now, but that's up, I believe, from last year.
Cause I say in the past, I don't think we've done that many.
Yes, that
I
is
think I
true,
recall like 2.
but they have been
They're
increasing.
increasing,
Yeah.
and with this opportunity, I would anticipate an increase on that in the years, because now business is open, right?
Right.
You can do a food truck here.
Right.
We got the law for it, or there's procedures for it, that'll incentivize event producers
Right.
to be like, oh yeah, they got it.
It's good for the borough.
Yeah, it's good for the borough.
It's good for the borough,
I wouldn't dip that licensing fee
right.
too much,
Well, would we consider,
because they're making, food trucks make money. They make a lot of money.
They do. A lot of, in my experience, a lot of them have to pay the organizer to be at the event, and then they've gotta pay the town.
Right.
So, just taking that into account too, and I think we have 5 already scheduled for the borough. That doesn't mean that number will go up, but I do anticipate that in the coming years, that number will increase.
I agree.
Do we wanna have it reflect, like we discussed for food establishments in the borough, risk, right, based on what you serve, like a sushi restaurant, much more risky, right? Do we wanna consider that as well, some sort of tiered system? Because if you're serving ice cream, an ice cream truck with an ice cream freezer, prepackaged everything, not that much risk. Not cooking, there's no real food, there's just, their freezer has to work and it has to temp out and things like that, and obviously how they package it and store it and the dates on it and everything. But somebody that's coming and cooking shrimp, or, souvlaki or something, that they're
Burgers.
preparing like raw food is being cooked, that requires a little bit more. I'm just, would we wanna consider tiering it, like we were considering tiering food establishments.
You'd have to really dig into the definitions on
Yeah,
what
now,
each tier
with
is.
the, you know,
I think the only, so in Randolph, we separate out prepackaged ice cream truck and food truck,
okay,
so those fees are different.
Hmm.
But I think doing a food truck based on risk is kind of tough because
I would agree.
sometimes they're like, we're gonna do burgers and hot dogs, and then other times they might decide to add more.
Yeah, just because they can
menu,
cook raw
right.
food doesn't mean they're going to at a
Right.
given event.
Right, right.
but you
It's
have 2 tiers in Randolph, prepackaged food and not, well, maybe that's something
prepackaged ice cream.
we could,
We don't break anybody else out
Oh,
of
just
that.
ice cream.
Prepackaged ice cream truck, regular food vendor.
So prepackaged ice cream truck is cheaper than everybody else.
I would think so, because
Yeah.
it's a lot of ice cream to
Well,
sell.
they were that
No,
way,
it's-
they were listed that way in the original ordinance. Ice cream trucks
Ice cream truck.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
were a lesser.
I'm sorry, it's my
It's
ignorance,
less
because I'm sorry, thanks for that.
Thanks for
Yeah, good
clarifying.
to have the questions.
Okay, well then it seems like it's already tiered.
Yeah, so that's good. It's just a matter of setting a rate that covers the inspection costs.
Yeah, plus cushion for,
Yeah. Are there penalties when you go back out, like, let's say they do great on the initial inspection, and then you go out for your once a year, and you find that, you know, like, we have to come back, these are things that are gonna now require us to come back. Is there a secondary fee that we have to come back now and do
The
again?
board can make one, a reinspection fee.
Like a reinspection fee?
That doesn't currently exist, but it could.
We do reinspection fees on restaurants.
And usually that fee is what the original fee is.
Because it's spending the same amount of time and so forth.
On the label, yeah.
How much does Randolph charge?
$275
For
For
food
the
trucks or,
for food trucks. Yeah, we have a lot of events
yeah, you have a lot of events.
that happen in Randolph.
And we're at
so,
150
A lot
right
of
now.
time.
Yeah,
I would, okay.
And we're at 150 now.
you're at 150 now, yes.
And what do they charge for the ice cream? It's less, well, I know it's less, but.
Yeah. Was that broken out in the original ordinance, Martel? I think they broke out temporary and annual.
Annual was 150, temporary less than 14 days is 50, temporary nonprofit less than 14 days, 0, and mobile frozen dessert food license prepackaged, 100 to 120 days, 100.
Yes.
Okay, you're the right spelling.
You made it.
So, they must allow drive-around ice cream trucks here in town? They do.
the drive
Yes.
around ice cream truck, yes, we do have one.
So that's what that license is for then.
Okay.
They,
And I'm sorry, how much is that for the ice cream truck?
$100.
$100.
$100 for, 1 to 120 day license.
So basically summer months.
The summer months.
But everybody else is a year.
Yes.
We'd be removing the temporary, and we'd be keeping
Right.
everybody else a
And
year.
changing it.
And you wouldn't, I imagine you would not change the nonprofit.
No.
Zero.
Yeah, just,
It's 0.
yeah, I know.
So would it be
I don't
wise to
think
then do
anyone's
100,
even
150, and then if a
Yeah.
reinspection is, if a reinspection is required, after the first field site, another fee of 150 for a reinspection?
I think they wanna drop down that 150 fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Who's
would,
they?
I'd make the year 100 as well.
Who's they?
I guess council.
Okay.
Don't look at me.
Huh? No, I was just wondering
Because I
who's
think
they?
what they're suggesting is because we don't have as many participants right now, because there's not as many events.
So it's
So
incentivized.
they're trying to make it more incentivized to get them here. Which means in the future, if we start having a lot of events and there's a lot of them coming, we can relook at the ordinance
Yeah,
and then change the fees.
Well, that makes sense.
Because pet licensing has been,
Right.
over the years, we have increased that at times. So it can be changed as the times change. Because as we were talking at the last meeting, that fee does seem kind of high, like if they're only having, the last I knew it was like 2 events, to pay basically $150 for 2 events, that's a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
plus
so if
the-
we brought it down a little bit,
Plus the boothing fee, you know, which is usually $250, $300 for an event.
you know, to now have to, if we bring that down a little bit, it gives them the incentive to be here. We start getting more people to organize events over the years, say in 5 years, we might relook at this and say, hey, you know what, we got 10 events a year. Maybe let's boost that up a little bit.
I bring it down to 100.
150 for the ice cream and 100
No,
for the truck.
100 for the year-long,
For everybody?
everything but ice cream. 100 for the 120-day ice cream. 'Cause
So
those
we're
guys
still
are
gonna have a
those-
time barred one for ice cream?
Yeah, the ice cream's 120 days.
Because they're not gonna have the ice cream truck going out in the winter.
Yeah.
To many 4-year-olds, sadness.
Yeah.
So originally we're suggesting.
I would recommend a re-inspection fee though, honestly, if they fail inspection. In the field.
Or do we bring it down to the 75 and then charge the re-inspection fee?
I think that's reasonable.
Because the re-inspection fee can be as much as the original fee.
Yeah,
Right.
75.
It's the
Just
same.
like-
So then we're gonna make double. We're gonna end up making more that way. If
Or
we
if
have to
they're
be
willing to do re-inspection if it was unsatisfactory. So there was 2 touches, the touch for the initial.
Correct.
And then once-a-year touch. And then only if they fail that once-a-year touch, then they go up and it requires.
Correct.
another. So the 75 would cover the labor, hopefully, for
2 touches
The
minimum.
2 touches,
touches.
and if they have to get a 3rd re-inspection, then we would make
the charge.
the additional 75.
That's fair.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, does that
Good,
sound
Courtney?
reasonable?
I would project to incrementally come up $25 a year per year over the next 5 years. Yeah, for budget regions, if possible. Hopefully, based on, increased volume.
I'll bring it to the council.
Yeah, I mean, if we start seeing more events coming around, then yes, we can revisit the ordinance and increase the fees.
Okay.
Well, that's the goal too, right?
Yeah.
More events.
Very, very good. So we have $75 for the original mobile food, $75 for a re-inspection. And we're gonna keep the mobile dessert at 100.
Correct.
Okay, so, I will bring this back to the attorney and we'll see a revised version with amendments at a future meeting.
Do I need
And I have a
motion on
question,
those?
so the ice cream's gonna be less than the food truck?
No, the ice
No.
cream is more.
Ice cream's
Or
more.
why?
But they don't have to, but they pass that inspection because it's packaged food.
Cause they've got more opportunity too, right?
Yeah.
Like every night they could drive
Right.
around.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
not
in the
just
summer,
going
they're
to
doing around
events.
almost every day.
So they're unlimited, unrestricted access? Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I
they're
wanted to
making
say.
money for so.
Yeah, no, that's okay, I just wanted to make sure that it was like, didn't seem preferential.
And then we're gonna eliminate the temporary.
Yes, and
Right.
just move to the
License.
annual licensure.
Do I need a motion for those?
Couldn't hurt.
Can I have a motion for those two?
I'll make a motion.
Just to make sure we have it on record.
Make a motion for the ice cream to be 120 days at $100 and food vendor trucks to be $75 annually and subsequently $75 for any re-inspections that are required.
I need a second for that.
I will second.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to new business. For one of our former members, which several of you did not know, Jean had passed away. And I did contact all of you, and I do wanna thank all of you for participating. And I did contact some of the former members, and all contributed money to a flower arrangement for her, and I will pass around. This is the arrangement that I had sent. I got it from Maryland's. I did ask them to take a picture for me and send me the picture. I said, this is a strange request, and I said, just send me the picture. And she's like, well, I'm not gonna be in the funeral home. I said, no, just take it here. I said, I need to be able to show the board members, the arrangement. I did get to, the funeral home to see her and her family, and they actually had it, right by the head of the casket, which I thought was very appropriately placed. And then with the money that I had left over, I made a donation on behalf of the board to the Fireman's Fund. So everybody who participated, I think, made a good honor for Jean in her memory, and Cynthia was very happy with the flowers and, you know, thankful for everything that we did for Jean.
Yeah, they had a beautiful service for her, so.
And I just made it, I got there about 10 minutes to 5. Because I was working that day, and I was like, oh, I gotta get out of here, and lo and behold, just before I was ready to click my phones off, I got a phone call that took me a half an hour to deal with, which always happens. So on to new business, I think we kind of discussed the annual multi-food vendor license.
Yes.
So that's taken care of. And on to the retail food establishment fee schedule, which is kind of what, I think Priscilla kind of brought up with, talking about the risk, scheduling versus the square footage scheduling.
Yes, so there was a request from the board last month to get an idea of how long each risk type would take to inspect. And I don't have, after talking to the inspectors, I don't have a good answer, because it could vary tremendously. So what I thought that I would do is bring the fee schedule that I had from Randolph that's based on risk type. So a risk type 1 is $80, a risk type 2 is $200, a risk
Can
type.
you go into what the risks are, because I don't think a lot of us know, and even me being here that long, I don't really know what each
Sure, so.
risk per se means.
Risk 1 is mostly prepackaged food. You would think of something like a gas station or a CVS or something like that. Tractor Supply would be a risk 1. Risk type 2 is ready to eat food, so something like an Aldi would be considered a risk type 2. Risk type 3 is more where you get into preparing and heating and cooling, which are sometimes difficult things for food establishments to do safely. So that would be a risk type 3, and then a risk type 4 is when you would get into a specialized process. So that being a sushi restaurant or a barbecue place that's using a smoker or something like that. Oftentimes their risk type 4s are required to have a HACCP plan, which is like a hazard plan that's supposed to detail out every level of a specialized process so that I can pick it up and know exactly what I'm supposed to do. Because some of these processes, if they're not done the right way, can make people really sick. So that's just a basic overview.
How much was the risk type 3
400,
and the 4?
500. And then reinspection for those coincides with their original licensure amount.
To be the same as, or?
To be the same as.
So risk 1 was 85,
It was 80.
80, and what was 2?
200,
And then 300, 400?
400, 500.
Oh, 400, 500, sorry.
I want to go back to why they couldn't understand like averages for each site.
No, they understood it, but it's like relatively impossible to do.
you'd have to budget your time for your day, like I have 8 hours today, I'm going to 3 sites today, right? Wouldn't they have a schedule with how many they think they could get done in a day?
But thinking they could and getting them done may be vastly different.
No, I'm actually familiar,
Right.
I'm very familiar with actually being inspected, you know, and having, you know, different levels of kitchens and stuff. So, and they plan when they come, they like, you know, it's not like, oh, like, be there the whole, like, they're not saying you're coming for the entire day.
No.
You know, they'll be like, all right, we're coming to your site and we're gonna be here for, you know, we expect to be there 2 hours. Like, there's always like, they tell us how long they think they're gonna be
We
there.
never, all inspections are surprise. We never tell anybody we're coming,
Okay.
or how long we're gonna be there.
So you just pop in, right?
Right, but it may take, I mean, a risk type 2 may take way longer if there are a lot of problems identified, or if they're doing a lot of education with the staff, or the person in charge is not there, and they're having difficulty with the staff, and then the person in charge gets there and they sort of start over to go through different things.
Okay, fair. Well, maybe there's a way we can back into it then, like if they do, you know, we can kind of mathematically back into the numbers, right? If you have 2 inspectors and they do X amount of inspections a year, on average, it would be so many hours per inspection. That's not saying, you know, like an average, that's what I'm saying. You can maybe get an average that way? Or is I'm too detailed for you?
I mean,
I think the variables that you mentioned, it could swing so much.
right, and
Right.
so,
Every place is
Yeah.
different. they're gonna
like
find
the
different-
average, I could give you an average
Plus
with
the
a very
square
large
footage.
range.
Yeah,
Right.
Plus
You
the
know.
square footage doesn't matter because a CVS is only selling prepackaged food, but it's huge.
Yeah, but it doesn't take them very long.
Yeah.
You know, compared to a risk type 2 that has a lot of food handling issues, a lot of temperature issues, you know.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out how we can just recommend a fee based on some data. Right, to have a little data behind our fee recommendation.
You have to look to other towns that have been doing that.
Yeah, I think it's just the law of averages. How many, even for us, how many have we inspected annually, right? Like, how many food inspections does the borough do a year? I mean, I'm not even gonna know that right now.
Yeah,
You know,
and it
but
also
like,
varies, right? Like new business coming in,
Yeah,
new businesses leaving, re-inspection, sometimes it's not just one re-inspection kind of thing. You know, like sometimes it takes food establishments 2 or 3 re-inspections to
Right.
be up to.
so maybe like 3 years of data would provide a good look. You
From
know,
a similar sized town.
Yeah, but that's a good idea, like, you know, I don't know, just a recommendation.
And I know what the goal is, so I know your goal, I know the idea is you just wanna make sure that all costs are covered. That's the
Yeah,
goal,
and
right?
just to have something behind,
They're not being covered now at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very low now,
okay,
so the recommendation would definitely be to bring them up.
To bring them up.
Yes, they're very low
Okay.
now.
well, that's good to know.
Yes, and
That's
it's
a little bit of
really
information.
not and when the fees are low, there's no real incentive monetarily to bring to be good on the first try. Does that make sense? To do
No,
it,
yeah, I know,
to
yeah,
have
absolutely, yeah,
because
yeah.
your re-inspection's only gonna cost you $80 and,
Well, then
You just-
this Thomas.
you just have to deal with-
Maybe $80.
right, so.
So what are other towns charging, do we know?
Well, I just gave the fees for Randolph, so
Right,
Roxbury does the same thing that Randolph does.
Mhm. And those are much bigger.
What does Denver charge, anybody know?
I'm sure it's very similar to, I'll have somebody look into that.
The only reason I ask is if we get the information surrounding the borough of how much the fees cost, we just wanna be competitive, right? You know, and we want business to come to the borough.
I'm gonna have them ask about Denville and Wharton.
Oh, that's good, that's everybody around us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And township.
Dover's its own beast entirely.
What about township?
Rockaway Township,
Roughly.
Because we're all kind of surrounding us.
For Chester, are you in the borough or the township?
The township.
The township.
okay. Done.
I'm just feeling like, that way we can really know what everybody's charging.
Yeah.
You know, eventually learn.
Definitely sounds like we're due for a, decent update
Yeah,
on the fees.
Yeah.
I think all the Board of Health fees could be used to be looked at,
Okay.
so they're pretty low.
What other fees do we have? I mean, we have dog and cat licensing, which we did last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got the mobile, and we've got the other fee. What other, we have?
There's other
Massage,
licensing
barber,
fees, tattoo.
Massage, tattoo, barber.
Okay.
Is that a general, is that like cosmetic? Is that all on, like tattoo and barber, are they?
No, tattoo is separate. Barber and hair are together, I think. Nail is separate.
What about gyms?
Gym's in there. Tanning.
Definitely look at the gyms too, because
Yeah.
I know they can afford it based on my monthly membership.
I say we got quite a few of those.
Yeah, but you're only going up.
Well, maybe that could be our project, look at everyone this year, every type of licensing, get,
I'm gonna ask you for that, Courtney. I'm gonna ask you for a breakdown of every type of fee in terms of by industry, right? Gyms, tanning, tattoo, food.
And then how are they, is the fee established by the type of business? It
Yes.
has nothing to do with square footage
No.
or
Yeah.
it's
again,
type
it's-
of
No,
business.
It's a
food is
risk
the
based.
only, yeah, and food is the only square footage based fee right now.
Everything else is tiered on risk,
Everything else, it's just a straight fee.
straight fee.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's no risk based on,
Yeah.
there is risk based on tanning, and that goes into the amount to charge for the inspection, but there's no risk one, risk two for
so a
tanning,
big gym or a small gym is the same,
unless the board wants to change that.
yeah.
Yes, but you are correct, currently it is the same.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions on the food licensing, which I think we need to table for now and readdress? And then we'll continue to address the other licensing fees as we go. And then if we can get them all looked at before the end of the year, we can send out letters for the new year of the increase in the fees.
Mhm.
Moving on to new business, letter D, licensing late fees. Is that related to food establishments or?
This goes back to the conversation we had at the last meeting, yeah, just about across the board licensing. So all licenses that are issued by the Board of Health are annual licenses. And what we talked about at the last meeting was a range of different things, including like a flat late fee or a progressive late fee that escalates over, some course of time, yeah. But the idea behind the late fee discussion was to increase licensing compliance.
I know with the animal licenses, it's like double the fee if you're late. But I think with the food establishments, we were trying to discuss like a progressive,
Yeah.
incremental fee based on the time frame that they're late.
I think we also, did we discuss last time people who, you mentioned that people are like
Chronic
chronically.
later, yes.
Like year after year, they're just chronically late. You know, and if there was any way to track that, like last year you renewed, you're supposed to renew January 1, and we see you renewed February 28th. You know, and now here we are again in the next year, and you're, you know, renewing in March, that now the penalty is X for 2 years of progressive lateness, or something like that. Were we talking about that?
We did discuss that.
Yeah,
That just works towards that progressive,
yeah,
which again, if it's progressive, it'll incentivize people to be on time because
Correct.
they don't wanna continue to pay, you
You don't
know,
wanna
an
penalize somebody.
exponential amount.
Right. And or if somebody just, like, the first time somebody moves into the borough, they open their business, they're late the first year, they didn't have, you know, whatever, it slipped off their calendar, you don't wanna have like something really significant, you want them to stay and.
well, like you said, you did do phone calls, you did follow-up calls to kind of remind them, so it's not like they're not
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like
getting
everyone
those
else.
reminders.
That's part of running a business, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Doesn't matter if it's day 1 or day 1,000, you should have the same standards across the board.
So do we wanna have like a late fee and then have a progressive late fee for chronic late filing?
Well, I think that's the problem, is we're not gonna be able to monitor who's chronically late. Cause I know we had talked about sometime, and nobody else I think is here on the board, they were talking about, like renewing your license, cause like some animals get that 3-year rabies vaccine. Trying to renew the license for 3 years, so you didn't have to do it every year. And they're like, they're just not gonna be able to do that at Borough Hall. Cause they're gonna have some that are 1 year, some that are 3 years, who's on this cycle, who's on that cycle. They said they just can't do it. So how are you gonna be able to track somebody who's been chronically late?
Well, these are annually the same date, right, and they're only for 1 year. So it would be, you know, there's no variable of like something changing, it's just, you know, January 1, every year. So when they file late, how is that process? Is there a document that's entered anywhere, and like software where it's easy to run a report to see, you know, were they late last year or something like that, or is it gonna be too labor intensive to track it?
I don't know that question, I don't know the answer to that question for the borough. We have in Randolph, we can tell when the license has been issued, I'm not sure how they keep track of that in the borough, and if they have a historical view of that.
Okay.
But what you could consider, in another one of my towns, they do like a initial penalty for dog licensing. If you're late in February, it's a $25 charge, and then if you come in March, it's $2 additional.
Yeah.
April, $2 additional.
That's
Like
kind of what
you
I'm getting at,
could
like,
escalate it throughout the year.
if January 1st is your fee, right, $100, that's, you know, January 1st is times 1. And then you could either do it by a week or a month, or now it's times 1.2, you know, now the later you are during the course of that year, the more you're gonna pay. So 1 year you might be right on time, $100. Next year maybe you're a week or 2 late, now it's X amount, you know, it's 102, or whatever, you know. And then if you're a month late, it's 150, if you're 2 months late, it's, you know, 200, you know, you start to add it up like that, which again will incentivize people to be on time. Cause that exponent increases rapidly the more weeks or months or whatever interval you're gonna use for that timed penalty.
Licensing late fees predominantly for food establishments? Is that what we were talking about, or were we talking about
I was talking about it a little bit more globally, because, we have had issues where we've had to issue summonses to in the borough for other businesses failing to license on time as well.
That's a good idea, because then you're not tracking different systems.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, this
Everybody's due at the same
policy
time.
applies to
Yeah.
all
And
licenses.
you would have the same late fees and for everyone,
Yes.
to make it uniform.
So you wanna do 20% a month penalty, and then by the time you hit 6 months, you know, you're at, you know, double fee?
Or were you looking for a flat fee, which is easier to keep track of, because it's all different.
This is, I don't
It's
have
up to
any kind of
us.
preference, yeah, this is a board decision, so, I don't have any kind of preference.
You'd have to, I don't think you could do it by the month, because if they got in within the month, then they would
Right.
be charged, it'd have to be per day. It'd have to be per day.
That's gonna be tough for.
That's gonna be
Okay,
tough
That's
to
very
figure
difficult
out.
to
What about the
calculate.
first of the month?
I'm gonna tell you, it's difficult to calculate.
You can do the first of the month.
So-
Say they were supposed to
So
renew
January 1st.
January first, if they don't do it, February first, they don't do it, they get a late fee,
Yeah,
and so.
but January 30th, it's still, they're good.
Well, that's
Yeah.
your 30-day grace period for, whatever happens. Like, you could, like, so let's say January 1 it's due, it's $100,
Mhm.
and then February 1st, if it's not done, it's $120,
Mhm.
you know? And then March 1st, if it's not done, it's $140,
Mhm.
you know,
Okay.
April,
So you're giving them, you're
160
essentially giving them a 30-day grace period per every fee.
per year, because aren't we doing that now?
Okay,
Yeah, I think we're just doing the phone calls, right? Like,
After, yeah, so everybody gets a licensing renewal, so we courtesy mail that out, even though it really is the business's responsibility to make sure that they're licensed prior to the 31st.
so they get a 30-day grace period anyway. So that would be consistent with the past practice, so we would be
Yeah.
changing the past practice.
okay.
Do we think $20 is steep enough?
I think it's percentage, 20%, I just use that in math, I mean, whatever.
Well, that is $20, but I don't think $20 is gonna be, like you
Yeah.
say, it's gotta hurt.
Be a deterrent to.
Yeah. That's why a percentage.
I think double,
Double for every month?
every month.
So if it's $100, then it goes up to 200
200.
next month, and is it double that the next month?
Like 400, 600, 1,000.
400?
I mean, with that, then
Certainly
people start to
people's
pay,
attention.
it's gonna get their attention,
Yeah,
It'll get their attention quickly.
and then maybe the next year they won't be late.
I think doubling it is better, having more is better, because as you said, it's not gonna make a difference to the business.
I mean, cause when we were talking about the reinspection on the food truck,
Right,
of whatever it was like, no big deal, I'll pay that.
right,
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get it right the first time, it's only whatever, a couple bucks, I'll pay it. $20, $20 is none, I'll pay it.
right.
$100? Yeah, hey, that's hitting my pocket.
Yeah, another 30 days after that.
After that, oh,
Right.
now 400, oh yeah, that's really hurting me.
Yeah, okay. So you're doubling it every period.
Or we would tack on at least 100 every month.
What if we tack on $100 every month?
That's what I just
That's
said, maybe
easier-
tack on
easier
100.
to-
So 100 for the initial, then 200, 300.
Right, that's how much the license would be, if they're late every, late for 6 months, $600.
Right.
And the fees are, there's a higher fee though, so, like if.
It's whatever the fee is for that license.
Right.
Right. So
I mean, we can do that across the board
So like
for
if
all
January
licenses.
$500, they didn't do their license, it's $1,000, February 1st.
No, make them sign up. You
You know, and then it'd be the same thing for the animal licensing.
Well, I think it's double now.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, but
it
then the
is.
next month, if you're still not signed up, cause I know, like, I talked to somebody that they didn't wanna get their pet revaccinated until, say what it was, like August. Oh, so I just have to be double the fee, no big deal. Well, now you're talking 8 months, you're multiplying that by. Well, that might be a different story, cause they thought it was too soon to revaccinate their animal. No, it wasn't, it's within the proper vaccination period.
Right.
I can understand that though, in some respects, because that's an expense of a homeowner for their pet, that they're incurring a cost to revaccinate.
No, they're not.
We
Free
do
vac-
have
free
vouchers.
vouchers.
Yeah.
Vouchers.
True.
So it would be no cost for the vaccine, they'd be vaccinated on time, and they could pay their licensing fee on time. So it would cost them nothing.
Mhm.
I think it should be same across the board for paperwork.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Whatever the licensing fee is, add that each month
Right.
to the fee, whatever we're doing.
Yep.
So we keep it consistent
Every month.
every month that they're late. I need a motion to accept that. Or I need somebody to make a motion for that. For the late fees.
I have one question before we.
Sure.
How many establishments are late, usually, every year?
Tough to answer, because this is my first go through, but quite a number.
Do we have any historical data from last year? How many people got?
We may, yeah.
I think in the beginning you said it was probably at least 20 to 40, if I remember correctly.
Establishments total.
Yeah. Isn't it? Something like that rings a bell. It was a substantial amount.
That's what I thought, yeah, so.
Yeah, it's not a few, you know, if, not all of them get to the point of getting a summons, but they all get up to a point of getting a phone call with the threat of further enforcement, so.
Which is more work for everyone too.
Exactly,
So this should cut down on it.
right.
Does, Randolph have an established late fee
Not yet,
on licensing?
no.
So
Working on the
this is
same
kind
thing,
of
yeah.
running parallel.
Yes, a lot of things that are happening there or happening here are happening in the other place, yeah.
Okay.
Would anybody like to make a motion on late fee? Need a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on to the hybrid meeting schedule and meeting attendance. First of all, for the meeting attendance, when we get the emails, I just like to ask everybody to reply all. Some people have replied just to Kimberly, and then we don't all get to see that, and I sometimes have to get in touch with her, like, is everybody coming, do we have a quorum? So if you can reply all with your responses, it kind of helps the other members to know what's going on. And be able to figure out if we're gonna be able to have a meeting or not. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the possibility of what people's thoughts are on a hybrid meeting. Case in point is Priscilla, if she couldn't have gotten here on time, stuck in traffic, could pull over on the side of the road, could hold a meeting with her on Zoom and still have that quorum, which we had without her, but she could still be part of that meeting. Somebody who might be a little sick and under the weather may not want to be present in the room, but could still be well enough and participate in the meeting on Zoom. I've heard that other boards do that. They do a hybrid meeting, so I wanted to see if our board was open to doing that as well. We can still do all our winter months, due to the inclement weather, and keeping all of us safe, by Zoom as well, but just now when we are more live here and present, if we wanted to vote for a hybrid meeting.
I think it's a good idea. We do for the library board of trustees. You know, I was under the weather one day, but we have a small group also, so I just attended via Zoom.
Case in point.
I think I would just like to offer one point of caution, as I've talked to a couple of people about this. My understanding is, like, if something goes wrong with the technology and the public actually can't get in, or we can't hear, or something, that we actually have to cancel that meeting.
Okay.
So it's a good idea, but my understanding is that there are some technology pieces that may pose, you know, even if we have a quorum here, but we can't hear public, or there's technology, or we can't hear somebody, a member on the mic or something like that, then it could be an issue for actually going forward with the meeting.
Okay.
And I think there may have been some technology challenges here.
We meet at the library, so
Yeah.
it's a little different, I guess, at the
Yeah.
library, which we haven't had any issues. We typically usually have one person or two people on Zoom.
So when you do a hybrid, is it just voice? Is it?
It can be, because you can call in.
Actually
Yeah,
seeing people?
it could be both.
I say, I don't know, because we've never done it. It's either been all in person or all on Zoom for us. Anybody have any other questions or concerns to bring about a hybrid meeting?
I think there's opportunity on both sides, like you said, like if the technology is down, when the meeting's down for the night. But then again, because we are a small group, and I just did not copy all about me being late tonight, sorry, I didn't reply. That was me. I don't know, I see the perspective, I'm back to history, how many times have we had to cancel because we haven't had a quorum?
A lot,
A lot.
when we were a small group. There were times we were only 4.
Okay. So
And
then
we
it might,
had one person who didn't show.
right, and
we
then
were
we
down.
the meeting, so then it might behoove us to try it. You know, and see if, you know, and, you know, it's just like you said, we can do,
Trial
If
run for a year.
if the Zoom goes down, or, you know, Teams or whatever function we're using, WebEx, there's always a call-in number. You know, and
Right.
usually telephones usually work, you know.
Yeah, because I say even sometimes when we were on Zoom, during our winter months on Zoom, we had somebody who couldn't do the Zoom, but they did the call-in.
Right,
So we could hear them on the Zoom,
right.
on the meeting.
So who facilitates our Zoom? Would it be you as our
No,
Chairperson.
Kimberly does it. I just don't know how it would be done here.
Yeah,
I don't either.
I don't either, cause we don't have a conference phone here to call.
I don't know,
in.
like, I would just pull it up on my email and do it through here.
I'll inquire with some of the more technology advanced members of the council, because.
I mean, I happen to see there's a computer here, I don't.
I think they can do it, we've got a screen, you got a camera.
We were using it for,
You
during
know.
COVID, you know, for meetings up there, so.
I mean, I happen to see there's a computer and a
Rob would
mouse here,
know,
I've
'cause he
never
does-
seen this here
Rob would
before.
know, because he does the technology, doesn't he?
Yeah, Rob.
I'm sure we could do it.
Mhm. I think it's worth inquiring about it.
I'll ask Rob O'Connor what the ease of use is, and, if he saw any, you know, consistent bumps that made it more of a headache than it was worth. You know, obviously in the case of COVID, you had to,
Right,
so bumps be damned at that point, you know, it has to be done. Where this is a little bit more of a luxury than a requirement. But, in terms of the idea, a trial run for a year and seeing how, if it negatively impacts past the point of necessity and comfort, then, this isn't a hard one to redact and be like, no, we're not gonna do that again. We're gonna go back to the previous schedule of inclement weather
Right.
months, it's Zoom, and then warm weather months, we're in person. That's not a hard switch to go back to.
Right.
I agree, it's a good time to see if it works, too. You have to cancel any meetings, because it did the technology.
Yeah.
It for a whole year. Okay.
Rob will tell me right away.
Any other questions or concerns about a hybrid meeting? And then correspondence, hopefully you also have a letter from Cynthia. Okay.
Yeah, and I just quickly wanted to share, so we have the Chem 23 profile that's happening this Friday, that is open to Rockaway Borough residents, so that's the blood work that we had talked about at the last meeting for low cost blood work. So that information has been distributed, I believe it's hanging at the municipal building, and I know it got out to the senior group. And then, we are going to be having the ScreenNJ mobile cancer screening truck actually in town here on June 12th at the Rockaway Assembly of God, from 3 to 8. And then it's gonna be in Randolph on June 26th from 3 to 8 too. So they let you pick up to 2 cancer screenings per time. So if, people came to the Rockaway Borough one and pick 2, they could also, if there was room, go to the Randolph one and get 2 as well.
Can you tell me the first event you mentioned,
The Chem 23 profile
23 profile?
is this Friday from 8:30 to 11:30 at the Randolph Municipal Building.
Friday, 8:30. And what is that?
So that, people can pick low-cost blood work to be done. So a lot of times insurance will only cover blood work so many times, so the lab provides blood work to residents at what they would charge us for, as the municipality. So, we thought this would be a good idea to also promote, knowing your MMR titer status, so your measles, mumps, and rubella immunity status as well, particularly as the measles outbreak continues to grow.
So that's good, so it gives everybody their titers, right? That would help with, I'll look at the nurses. That would help also with shingles vaccine recommendations, right? Or no? No, somebody that never had the chicken pox, or they did.
No, it's
Doesn't-
measles, mumps.
Yeah, MMR titer, yeah, not varicella.
It's not varicella, oh, okay, I'll take it back, sorry.
No, but they can also get other types of testing done, too. You can get your Hep B titer, Lyme antibody screening, some thyroid testing done.
Oh, really?
Yep, iron, vitamin D, hemoglobin A1C, B12, lead.
Where's it, community center?
No, it's at the Randolph Municipal Building,
Randolph.
And the blood work's free, or is it minimum charge?
low cost, yeah.
Low cost.
That's great.
Okay.
So that's happening this Friday, and then the cancer screening event on June 12th here at the Assembly of God. So you can pick 2 of the following. There's a physical breast exam. We're hoping next year they get the process to actually do a cervical cancer screening as well, but there's something happening with ScreenNJ in that process. A colorectal risk assessment, a lung cancer risk assessment, a prostate physical exam, or a skin cancer risk assessment. So you can get any 2 of the 5 at the cancer screening. And the mobile van, I think, is kind of new and cool, so it'll pull right up to the Assembly of God, and there's a QR code on the flyer, so people can use that to sign up. Signups are encouraged, although you can walk up, but they did say they will take people who signed up and registered in before somebody who may have walked up if there was like a competing competition for the time slot.
And that's open to all residents, not age, based,
Everybody.
that's cool.
Yeah, so that's open to everybody, and one of the reasons that we really decided to partner with ScreenNJ was because they have wraparound and follow-up services that they provide once something is detected. So the screenings that were being offered before were not necessarily a direct care provider, and so linking people back into care when something was detected can be challenging, but ScreenNJ has a whole team of patient navigators that if there's an issue, they're following up and then linking people directly into the follow-up care that they need. So that flyer went to, both of these flyers went to the library, the municipal building, the senior group, so we're trying to get that out and advertised.
Does it go to Morris County too? Do we tell the county so the county can publicize it for us?
I would, my plan is to maybe do that, but to hold off and just to make sure that the borough residents have enough time to register if, you know, before we blast it out to the entire county.
What about to the schools, would it be appropriate? They have a newsletter that goes out. And the library puts all their activities and events on there, as well as other activities and events throughout the town.
Can we put it on the new sign?
I did ask for that.
That would really get a lot of local residents.
Both Thomas Jefferson and Lincoln School do their own newsletters. So I would get in touch with the secretaries there. I have Jean Rueter, who she still does the newsletter at TJ, and Kim Murphy.
Okay.
And they can point you in the right direction if someone else doesn't.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Does the borough have an Instagram account?
Yeah.
Facebook? We use Facebook. No, on the TikTok, right?
No.
That's just how you communicate with people. People 45 and older like Facebook, 44 to 35 to 30 like Instagram, and then anybody under 30 likes TikTok.
Can't wait to see the mayor do a TikTok trend.
That'd be cool. That would be cool.
Do you have any other correspondence? Okay, the other piece of correspondence I have gotten was that Joanne has sent in her letter of resignation. Partly because she can't attend the meetings because she's all over the country. And thinking that possibly with a hybrid meeting, she might be able to attend. Because she could do it on Zoom. So, I don't know if I should let her know that we might be considering that and see if she wants to still be part of the board. If she can do it on Zoom, because she just said she's not always here, doesn't know if she can always attend. But if she could do it by Zoom, she might still want to be a part of the board. So we still have a vacant spot, and if Joanne does resign, we will now have 2 vacant spots. So we need to try to drum up some business here.
Well, I would share with her that opportunity because maybe that would be, you know, that if we're gonna do a hybrid, but, you know, not so long, good tip.
Right.
It's good information to have.
Yeah, I think I'll try to reach out to her and let her know once we know about the technology. And Kim has to post that before we can actually do it as a hybrid meeting. and I think she has 2 weeks prior to the meeting to post it. So if you can let me know, Andrew, and then I can let Kim know, because she has to post it in our, newspapers that we post the meetings in.
Gotcha.
How the meeting is gonna be held. And at least if we can give it a trial run, and see how it works. So, did I ever get a motion to accept the hybrid meetings?
No.
No, I don't
No,
think so.
I think we need-
Find
I
out
think we should,
if it could be
Find out
done.
first?
yeah,
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 So then we couldn't even do it next month,
no,
we would have to do it the month after.
yes.
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I think that these meetings recently have been very robust and great, and so I would hate to not have the answer and then have to cancel something because
They
it
didn't work.
didn't work, yeah.
Okay, but I'll still reach out to Joanne and let her know that, you know, this is possible for the future and see if she still wants to try to hold on until we know something. Any other correspondence? Okay, we have public here tonight, so I'll open the meeting to our public.
Go first?
My name is Arlene LeBoy. I live in 103 Rockaway Avenue. I came because, maybe some of you guys know or not, but my house was impacted by a mail truck last year in August. My husband and I have been trying to get, first we went through our homeowner's insurance, and based on the estimate, the amount that the insurance had deemed to pay was not even close to what the estimates were. So then we decided to go to the postal service, and the postal service took about, I send in the estimates and all the things they requested, took about 6 months for them to get some type of result. We just got like $10,000. They're telling us that they can give us $10,000. Again, that's not gonna cover the repairs. So we declined that offer, but since we declined the offer, now it has to be a tiered situation. So because it's a federal government agency, they have to, go through tiers. So now it goes off this claim supervisor, and now it goes to another person, their attorney, and then their attorneys assign someone else. And the reason why I'm coming here, besides me telling you all of this, is because I have neighbors that do care about our town, especially my street is very busy, and it's like a sore eye in the town, especially because it's boarded up. And as much as it's an inconvenience for them, seeing a boarded up house is an inconvenience for me and my husband. We have a large family, we are not able to use that side of the house, we have to use our side exit, our children can't play in the front yard. There's a lot of issues that we're also dealing with. We're trying to do the neighborly thing and try to fix it, but the money's not there and they're not willing to pay what the estimate is. We have to take that legal process with them. So I was hoping to see Mr. Scott, but he's not here, and I'm not familiar with how this is run, but I'm hoping that someone can let him know, or someone can let the town know that we are trying to do our best to get this fixed as soon as possible.
Have you been cited in any way by the town?
No, but like I said, my neighbors, they keep coming. This one particular neighbor got me really upset because he says that he has someone in the town who keeps telling him that they're gonna be fining us. I'm not sure what we're doing, in a sense, wrong. The house is boarded up because we have to protect it from the weather. There's nothing that we can do because it has to get, again, it wasn't our fault. It was the United States Postal Service fault, and they have to pay for it. They have acknowledged that was their fault. The claims supervisor has acknowledged that they have to pay for it, but because it's not the same amount and what they're offering right now, they do have to go through some other form of process. She did say it might take, and again, I'm gonna say might, but she says, I am leaning towards it's going to take another 6 months. So it's not something that, if it were up to me, my husband and I even told her, please just send somebody, just please fix it, because at this point, with the pressure of people coming to us and talking to us, oh, they're gonna fine you, getting letters, and just not being able to use that side of the house. And we have a beautiful porch and steps where we can see our kids play, we can't use them, unfortunately. So, as a town resident, I just wanted to let you guys know.
Thanks, Renee.
I have a question on, the correspondence. You said there was correspondence that everybody saw, but from Cynthia or something, what was that? Usually people read this correspondence, or?
It was a letter or a card thanking her for the board for the flowers.
Oh, okay, that's why I didn't know what that was. And about the hybrid, does that mean the public can call in too, or it's a Zoom? How, are you gonna do a Zoom for everybody, or is that just for the members that can't make it? I do know that the mayor and council, did state that there should be no Zoom or anything, and for some reason, I know you guys have it in the winter months. I could see having it if there's a snowstorm, but I really think these meetings in public are more productive, and then the public can come too. And I see you do have more members, but you're not a full board yet. I mean, you had people, you left it empty intentionally and told somebody no. I think you guys need to fill the board. And I don't know, that's just my opinion. But I understand your reasoning for hybrid, but to have somebody in another state in a car at a basketball game or whatever, zooming in it's just, I don't know, it's kind of unprofessional in my opinion, but that's only my opinion. So that's what I thought I would say.
Thank you, Ronnie, yes.
You're welcome.
What are the requirements to be in the board? Just curious.
We usually like somebody with some healthcare knowledge. Living in the borough is a requirement, that's a must. And then you do go through a little interview, to participate.
Okay.
To see, if you have certain
Criteria?
that are met.
Okay. And then, you have to be present in all the meetings?
If something comes up and you can't, then you just need to let us know, but we do meet every, second Tuesday of the month, and we do like you to attend as many meetings as you can, but, things do come up. If you said you had children, if a child's sick, you didn't have childcare, things do happen. But yes, we meet, every month but August, so there's 11 meetings a year. So, we do try to have everybody attend every meeting.
And then if the position happens to be open because certainly leaves, then where would you find that, to apply?
You send a resume to the, Borough Hall, Borough Clerk.
So you just go online and look up the email and just send it to you guys?
Yeah, it's a generic borough clerk email, I forget, it's a rockawayborough.org or something like, I don't know, I forget the ending.
Borough clerk at rockawayborough.org.
Yeah.
If you can't find it, you can always call Borough Hall and they can give you the correct email.
Yeah, Kim will give it to you like that.
Thank you very much.
Do you have healthcare background, or do you know of somebody who might?
I do, I worked at a chiropractor for about 7 years. I'm currently a teacher, so I'm not sure.
Where do you teach?
Dover Public Schools.
Any other questions or concerns from the public?
Oh,
No, then I'll close to the public. Any other questions or concerns from the board?
Just a quick question on property maintenance. Does the length of the lawn have to be a certain length before you have to have an issue?
I think it's 12 inches.
And someone's brought to me because they're having issues with, I don't even know if it has anything to do with you, or maybe you know, sharps
hospitals will.
Hospitals do.
Yeah, if you wanna give the person the phone number to the Randolph Public Health Nurses, they'll be able to tell them a list of places,
Those are for public health nurse.
public health nurses, yeah.
Nursing homes take them too.
Take one, I'm sorry.
Sharps.
Sharps.
Like needles for insulin.
They have to be though in a puncture-proof container. And people usually recommend, like, for home use, a Tide bottle, bleach bottles are even better. And then they have to be transported.
And sealed.
Yeah.
Moving on to our staff reports.
Alright, for the environmental inspections, we have 3 certificates of habitability, 8 food and drink inspections, 1 visual lab inspection, 1 tanning inspection, for a total of 13 inspections done in April. 2 environmental Oprah requests, conducted, 1 environmental solid waste complaint, 1 housing complaint, 2 property maintenance complaints, 2 summonses, notices of violation, letter issued, for a total of 8 complaints done in April. And then moving on to the public health nursing report, under child health supervision, 2 requests for nursing and 2 referrals done. Infant and preschool children, I see, this is different on this report. The Child Health Conference was held on April 15th. And the Child Health Conference is both the vaccination clinic and we have an advanced practice nurse there who does physicals for children who are underinsured or not insured at all. So there were 2 children who were scheduled and then 2 referred for follow-up care. So these services are really to fill a gap. If someone has insurance, loses insurance, or something like that happens, they may be new to the country, but we really try to refer them to a medical home, because that's not the purpose that the health department serves. So they were referred to a provider that hopefully they will pick up care with and be able to continue with. And then there were 3 children screened for childhood lead poisoning. 1 was positive initially on a capillary draw, and that venous draw is pending, and there were 4 follow-up calls related to those cases. Under child care consultation, there was some vaccine record guidance given to TJ Middle School. The public health nurses are attending quarterly meetings at the senior meetings at the community center for blood pressure screenings, which has had a much better turnout than just showing up at the library. So there were 13 people screened total at the senior meeting for their blood pressure, and 1 home visit that was done. You will see under Chem 23 that we were prepping for the program, and that clinic is scheduled, like I said, for May 16th at the Randolph Municipal Building. And then there was cancer screening prep. I did give those 2 dates, 6/12 at the Assembly of God and 6/26 in the White Supermarket parking lot. There were 7 communicable disease cases that we received, and there were 2 disease investigations done.
Just if you can stop there, I'm not sure how we say this one, the yersiniosis.
Yeah.
Do we know where that came from? Was it from a home cooked meal or a eating out?
It did not get flagged on my end as
Okay.
being a restaurant.
Okay.
So it may have been, but it wasn't one
Around us.
that was in town.
Okay.
Because, just so the board knows, if we ever get a food complaint, and because I cover multiple towns, this holds true for any of the towns, but if we ever had somebody become sick and they are listing on their food history a restaurant in one of the towns I cover, we go out for an immediate inspection. Both to follow up on the complaint and we do a full chapter 24 inspection at that time as well.
Christian, sorry to interrupt, I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick, right?
Okay.
And then, we had one adult come for our 317 clinic, which is our adult clinic. And then we had 7 children come for our VFC clinic, and a total of 15 immunizations were given. And then, under preparedness, so our nurses did go to a tabletop emergency preparedness exercise that the county hosted on April 16th. And that was an exercise that brought public health and emergency management, some healthcare providers together to discuss a scenario, and that scenario was hepatitis A in food handlers. So they gave rave reviews, because this would certainly impact nursing and environmental, and so they had a great time, they learned a lot, and overall it was a good exercise. And then went to a number of meetings, including clinical management of dengue fever, provider updates by NJDOH, measles in a modern world, unbiased science, fluoride and prejudice. A lot of these different topics are coming up in the news, so the nurses are trying to sort of keep on top of what the current science is as it relates to all these different topics.
I have a quick question. For the communicable reportable diseases, how do you find out about them?
So when you go to a doctor, they're required to report them to us. So we find out about them electronically through.
So you're in the notification system, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So the thing that I think providers are not great at is there's a list of immediately reportable upon suspicion, as in like don't wait for the lab work to come back because that could be a while, and so things like measles are at the top of that list. Like if a doctor suspects measles, they should be calling us really before they get a confirmatory, so that public health action is sort of in the queue and ready to go should that lab work come back, or there's some kind of epi link that would make us highly suspicious. So normally things like STEC, Shiga toxin producing E. coli or yersiniosis, that comes from lab work from doctors or hospitals or things like that.
Do you have anybody ever self-report, or like when they call for a complaint, they didn't go to the doctor? I think I have
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah, and we do the same thing. We go out immediately to make sure the food establishment is in compliance, but not having a stool specimen and an actual pathogen, it's a lot harder to sort of identify, especially when we get self-reports of I was sick and so was my entire family, and then the timeline becomes a little fuzzy because many things you don't feel immediately. So the incubation becomes in question and things like that. So, but we do get that a lot.
Any questions on the staff reports? Moving on to vouchers.
No vouchers.
Any other questions at all? I need a motion for an adjournment.
I make a motion.
No fighting over there. And I need a second.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.